This is Sifu Ben of Jose Wing Chun. We would like to dedicate this episode to Dr. Ling.
Welcome everyone to the Seeking the Bridge podcast. Today we have a special guest for our episode 5, Sifu Ling. He originally learned from Leung Sheung way back in the day. He's now moved to the United States. He's a retired professor, and he's still teaching Wing Chun to this day up until the coronavirus. Welcome to the podcast, Sifu Ling.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah. So I started with Sifu Leung Sheung in 1959.
Oh wow! How did you choose Leung Sheung?
Well, I got in a fight with a classmate who happened to study with Leung Sheung.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I was then, of course, having been brought up in China, I learned natural style. You might have heard of it before, in Cantonese. And there were a lot of kicks, free kicks. So I was kicking the guy, and he said, "Oh, don't do that. I'll take you to my teacher, and you won't be able to touch him." So I said, "Where does he live?" And he said, "Oh, da da da," and happens to be just a few blocks from a high school. And I said, "Okay, we'll go there." And we went over, walked up a flight of stairs, got into this open space, partially covered, and there were kids there practicing. And there was this guy. So I said, "All right." And my friend said, "Okay, Jack doesn't know what Wing Chun is. Show him." And that's how a relationship started.
Oh wow! And that was a friend of yours?
Well, kind of a friend. I mean, classmate. I call it friend loosely. But at least he got me connected. And he dropped out. So you can see he was not a very serious student. But it was neat because I got there and Leung Sheung actually said, "You try your stuff on me."
And
So
did you?
Put my hand out. Yeah. He said, And so I did that. I spin kicked, I jump kicked. I did all those nicey things that little kids like to do. And then he said, "Enough?" I said, "Yeah." He said, you can't touch me because you can't hit anybody that way. You have to move in. And so I said, "What is Wing Chun anyway?" I looked around. I said, "Those guys are just sort of repeating the same thing or standing up doing nothing."
Uh-huh.
He says, "Well, you can stay here and watch us. If you like what we do, tell me, and I'll teach you something to practice." So I went there after school and watched. After a while, he said, "Okay, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I want to try this first form, the zeal. It looks weird. It's so slow, and you stand funny." And I said, "It's really odd." And he says, "Well, that's what you'd be doing, standing on the Yizi Kim Yong Ma and doing the Tan Sao and so forth for the next 6 months. You're going to study with me."
Oh wow!
For the next 6 months.
How old were you at this point?
12 years old.
Oh my God.
And you stuck it through.
Yeah, I was just one of those kids. I'm going to do it. I'm sticking in the learning. And I want to show you how stupid it is. See, I was kind of not convinced. And I did that and Tan Bong Fo with 3 hands, right? And Sifu Leung Sheung sort of corrected me. So I did that. I said, "Okay, I'm doing that. I'm doing that." And he says, "All right, after 6 months, I'll teach you the rest of the form." So I didn't really finish Singing Tao until maybe 8 months after I met him. I kind of watch other people practice and I memorize everything going on. And that's Sifu Leung Sheung's comment on me all the time. He said, "I don't need to teach you anything. You just watch and you learned everything before I even taught you anything." And because I was there every day for 3 hours at least. And
Every
so
day?
every day, yeah.
Like Monday
Wow.
through Sunday?
I should say Monday through Saturday.
Okay.
Monday through Friday is for the class, in that
Uh-huh.
class, other people. But I was kind of dumb. Being a 12-year-old, I didn't understand a lot of sayings. I didn't tell them I wasn't Cantonese, but I didn't understand a lot of Cantonese expressions. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? Well, the one option is to take private lessons. So I said to Sifu, I need to have you help me with my hand more. And he said, well, I'll come on Saturdays. I said, okay, I'll come on Saturdays. So it's really 6 days a week.
Wow. For a 12-year-old, that's a lot of dedication. I started when I was 12 also.
Yeah, okay, so you kind of know. Well, you had a lot more things to do than I did.
I did Siu Tao for a full year before anything else.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's good. Yeah, yeah. In Hong Kong at that time, I kept and I experimented with developing tropical fish strains. I got fish from all different parts of the world and developed strains and resold them as a kid.
Oh, wow.
So my house, backyard of my house, had over 20-gallon tanks and many other size tanks. That was my hobby. The other side of the backyard, eventually, the wooden dummy, iron
Oh.
palm training, and all this kind of stuff. So that was the back of the house. That was my area. My parents were just happy because it kept me out of trouble.
Yeah, Hong Kong was really rough. I heard back then, right?
Yeah, it's also very poor, right? It was not long after the riots. It was a very violent riot. It was not long after after 49, so the immigrants came in about 3 or 4 years' time, coming over the border in the 50s. And there wasn't enough housing, there wasn't enough anything, and worst of all, there was a drought. And so it was pretty bad. People were suffering, and the pay was horrendous for people who worked on an everyday basis. And so it was dangerous on the streets. Yeah, we as kids try not to run around too often, but I did. And so learning to fight and all that kind of stuff, talking to my Sifu, talking about the Gaolong side, that little wall city. I said, gee, I need to go there. You guys went there and beat people up with poles, so I got to go there. He said, no, you don't go there. I said, I go there to find tropical fish. Don't worry, I'm not going to hit anybody. He said, they'll kill you. So I'll show you then. So Sifu Leung Sheung took me and several people to the place. I looked at the tropical. There are a lot of places to sell tropical fish, and they introduced me to a Chinese medical doctor, did Chinese medicine, to show me the Wing Chun ointments, rubbing ointments. And that was my introduction to Gaolong Zai. It was very dangerous, very crowded.
The walled city, right? That they eventually
Yeah,
took
yeah.
down.
Yeah, the walls, and they took it down. But it was one of these cities nobody took ownership of, and gangsters got in, and you can really buy anything you want in there. A lot of prostitution, a lot of everything illegal. And as kids, I mean, you don't want to go in there unless you've got people protecting you. Like, Hong Kong was like that. You can just, right now, Hong Kong is spread out, right? It used to be, you take the bus down to where Sifu's school is. If you go another couple of blocks, it's the beginning of the new territories. So it wasn't well developed. But now it's all built up. You can also see a real big class distinction, socioeconomic class. And that pretty much defined Wing Chun system. Leung Sheung, where he was in zeal, the early school, situated very close to two well-known schools. One is where I went to, Diocesan Boys School, Batsui, and the other is Huayan. Huayan is all Chinese, and it's Catholic. Batsui is Protestant, and it's all sort of Anglo, biracial, and richly spoiled Chinese who have some talents because it's an exam school. You have to be relatively bright to get in, but you got to have money. Okay, so you have Huayan essentially has a lot of kids that live in cinder block houses and wooden houses you see on the hillside. You might have seen pictures of that in Hong Kong, right? And when I went to their houses, homes, I didn't know how to act as a kid. The whole family lived in it, and then they go to school, so they were fairly poor. And Leung Sheung had students mainly from Huayan, from Chinese students. And then after I went there, I brought in a number of DBS students, and that was it. So that was quite clearly, oh, this is a Richie kid, right? Da. And private lessons is expensive. I didn't really know that as a kid. I was really dumb. So I told Sifu I don't have money to pay him every month because my mom won't let me learn Wing Chun. This is a gangster system. And you stay with Tai Chi Chuan, and at that time, Xing Yi Chuan. You do that, and I bring the teacher back to the house, and you train with him. And I said, I'm going to study Wing Chun. And my mom said, I'm not going to support you or fund you. So my plan was to use what I got in Hong Bao, red packages in New Year time, and take money out to give to teacher. So I told them, I'm saying, I don't have money, but I can give you gifts for your birthday and New Year. And he looked at me. He probably thought I was just an idiot, because I was a kid. He says, okay, give me whatever you want to. And so I collected money, gave it to him. And he looked at it, and he said, this is too much money. I don't want it. I said, what is too much money? He said, this is part of what I collected for my New Year, from New Year. He said, no, that's too much. This is enough for the whole year. It's enough for private lessons.
Wow. Well, he really took a shine to you then.
Yeah, I didn't know that the kids were only paying $10 a month, standard. And I was giving him, what, $40, $50?
Oh.
And I gave $500 for birthday.
Wow.
And he was embarrassed. Now I understand it after looking back. But it was one of those things for being young and being sort of boisterous and said whatever I thought helped, right? Because nobody took me seriously. And that is, son probably did not. And he said to me, he said, well, since you don't understand what I say, I'll train every one of the hands.
Oh, wow.
I just count how many hands there are in each form. Some repeat all the way through, others are new in each form. And see if you can find them in the wooden dummy, Mo and Zong. Then later on, tell me which one repeats themselves most often. And anyway, so I said, I don't know how to use this. I don't know what this is for. So he says, don't worry. We have a lot of drills. Okay, so we do drills. And he said, I won't teach you anything unless you do a hand right. You're off a little bit, you don't learn anything new.
Nice.
After you do that, I'll have you train with a Sihing. I want to use you to use this hand, and if you can, control him. And that's what happened. I learned certain hands, the fuse out from underneath, just going to the neck, boom, dropping the guy down. Right? I learned Pak Sao, Kwan Sao, Bo Pai pretty well. That's what he'll have me do it with the Sihings who are boisterous, who talks about their fights. And then I'll bounce them against the wall. and then Sifu would say, see, you can't even fight this little kid. And you're talking about fighting other people. He said, you just have never met good people. Good people will kill you. And that is the truth. We tend to fight with people our age group, and people who are working will find people who are working, and they're tougher. Evening classes are made up of people who worked. Working means bus drivers, taxi drivers, policemen, gangsters. And so we were told not to go there in the evening. We only went there to be introduced to one or two people that would take care of us. One policeman and one gangster.
Wow.
So most of the guys in Hong Kong now went to evening class. Maybe I think two went in the early morning, 7:30 in the morning. And they went in the early, and most of them were in evening class 1969, post 1969.
Who were your Sihings that taught you when you were there? Do you remember their names?
They touched hands with me. They didn't teach me. Sifu was the only one who taught me.
Oh, okay.
Zhang Buk's brother. Zhang Buk's brother I had most contact with. He was really cool. He was from Huayan. He was really cool. He had long hands and long legs. And he moved beautifully. When he does the Biuzi, Baizang, and so forth, he has long arms. It really looks really pretty. And so I always enjoy that. And I was watching do the double knife form when you're moving forward on the back leg, holding double knife.
Yeah.
And he'll do that backwards and forwards. I don't know how many times a day. Each time I go there to practice, he's practicing the knife form. That's how much ahead he was with me. There are a couple of guys. One who is now a what do you call him? Feng Shui Lo.
Fortune teller, or
he tells you where to put your furniture and build your houses. He does that. He's in the States, and he's the guy who used to come back and tell stories of fighting people almost every day. And he's one of those guys that I'm so happy to stick on. Of course, afterwards they try to hit me or something to put me in my place, but they were not that good. The truth of the matter is, a lot of the these kids that I practiced with, were not that good. They just don't have the sophistication that you may think they would have. And because at that time, I think Sifu was very successful. You're having 25, 30 people in each class, right, who were just there. And there were new students coming in. So I'm not so sure you can teach Wing Chun well, especially students, young students, relatively, in any sophisticated way. You probably have a better chance teaching folks who evening students when they're older, in the 20s and so forth. But then they learn, from what I hear, much more, a lot of Wing Chun for fighting. But that's what people needed and made a living from. We were doing it kind of structurally. We were correcting all the hands, elbows, and legs, doing very much what Ken does, right? But not to the extreme like Ken does. But at least we use that language and so forth. I think that the opponents we had were not that good. So I mean, that's my judgment. I saw folks who are really good that I won't have a chance to get close to. And that's one fellow sing zeal. White. You may or may not have heard of him before. He is a home boxer from Duquesne. He's become well known. He's in Canada right now. He worked for my dad's office. He delivered mail and stuff. He came over to my house one day and saw me sort of hitting on the wall bag and doing that. He says, what are you using to rub your hand to so on and so forth? I said, nothing. I said, you're gonna hurt your hand. I said, it's all right. If I hit it softly, I won't hurt myself. He kind of looked at me and thought I was an idiot. He said, okay, I'll bring you something next time. And what he did was he stuffed a whole big bottle with Chinese medicine and another bottle filled with black vinegar. He said, you train iron palm with vinegar. Not only does it soak and pull out the chemicals faster, you warm it up when you train your hand, put it in, it won't evaporate as quickly as wine, right? If you use wine ointments. So he got that. He said, I'll train you. And he said, by the way, do you want to try my hands? And he said, I won't use my legs, and I'll just use one hand. I said, come on. Just because you're older and you're bigger. What he did was the minute I put my hand, my zeal out, came up with from underneath and uses this knuckle.
Phoenix Eye?
Inside, hit me right here.
Oh, wow.
My whole arm was paralyzed.
Wow.
He said, now think about it. As you didn't even have a chance to move, right? Say, don't fight with people that know what they're doing. And I thought, gee, where's he practice iron palm and stuff? And I said, well, show me your iron palm. He said, give me a break, not break it for you. And he smashed. He said, so if you train seriously in home and other styles, you harden your hand, your body, you learn how to take punches and so forth. Do you Wing Chun Kai Tzu only on the bong sao where my hand is all swollen from being hit, practicing the lap sao, bong sao, right?
Right.
And he says, well, you need ointment to rub it and cure it and so forth. So that's where I learned that stuff from him. And he was good. But he, as far as I know, at that time was not famous. His parents were students of Sai Wing, which is well-known home boxer. But he was just an average 20-year-old, 22-year-old maybe, trying to make ends meet. And there were quite a number of folks from mainland China that people don't know about that are very good. One guy whom I met on the Tin Pang, you know what Tin Pang is, Cantonese? It's a flat roof.
Okay.
Hong Kong is 3 floors, and you heard about these rooftop
Fights. Yeah.
That's where it is. I'll go up there to do my practice, and there was this guy. So, and he spoke Fujian dialect. I don't know what he was talking about. So he said, okay, so I'll show you. Do these things for you. Later on, he took me to a school that he practiced it. These you may not have seen these wooden chairs that you have in Hong Kong school, where the legs of the table and the chair are connected. Have you seen pictures of it? They're made of wood. But anyway, the idea is that he swept his leg, kicked his leg across, and broke all the legs.
Oh, wow.
And he smashed. So blasted the table. Wood tables have a lid. You can open the tabletop and put things in it and close it. Smash it right down the middle. And I said, that's Kung Bei, long arm given style. He was a spear champion in the Fujian national competition. So you don't know about these folks, and these folks train differently than we do for obvious reasons, right? And if you just go and fight with them, we've been creamed. I got very skeptical about when people come back and say they fight with so and so and they beat them. I touch hands with them and then I throw them around or I drop them. And you're not very good. But we'll beat the heck out of you. And so I'm sure that's what they believe in. It's just that people, they fight with different people on their own levels. Every now and then, they beat somebody will bring a seating or bring a cecil and beat them up afterwards. But it was not the kind of ferocious beating that you oftentimes hear people tell stories about. Now, if you belong to a gang or that you are an older person who made a living in the protection bracket, and in Hong Kong, there are a lot of mahjong and gambling sites that open up at night. Well, Dai Si, I don't know if you've heard of it before. It's a name in Hong Kong. It's an area. And that's Sifu's senior student thing. But was the protector. Right? He sort of took care of that place. So those guys are pretty tough. But if you look at Zhang Bak, his hands are pretty rigid. His hands are pretty hard. There's nothing like Ken's, for example.
Very specific purpose then.
Very specific purpose. They were trained differently. And I really believe that you find a number of people studying Wu Man, the same thing. They the personality difference. And also they really try to learn Wing Chun for different purposes. And they took whatever they wanted it and morphed it and did well with it. So everybody says, of course, this is my Wing Chun or Leung Sheung Wing Chun. It is and it is not. Let's put it this way, right? So leading to the disputes over who really is doing this and that, which I get very tired of. I went back to Hong Kong, met the guys. So I touched hands with a number of them. Eddie Chi is pretty good. But he's also a big guy. He's also size of Sifu Ben. But he's pretty adept, and he's got long hands and big, and had an odd time with Ken when he was there. But I thought, hey, he's a guy that would be formidable to fight with. And I touched hands with some students. I touched hands with Muyat students. I touched with a number of people who were teaching in Hong Kong. I just went up to their studio with Mimi, and you saw Mimi. Mimi is so friendly. Yeah. They're not able to take us seriously, right? That's what I like to do.
I think I saw some videos on.
Yeah. So
YouTube.
they couldn't take me seriously until I touched hands with them. Yeah. And then when it got heated, and I said, oh, I got to rest, and I'm old, so nobody got embarrassed.
Good.
And so we did that, and I went to different people. So I got to meet a number of people and sample what it's like in Hong Kong. Kids learn Wing Chun as though it were some kind of cookbook or something. They just run through it. If you don't teach them, they run to somebody else to learn it. There's always someone you can pay, and they teach you the whole thing.
It's far different from when you learned.
Yeah, and a lot of them train so they can compete. Wing Chun has a whole competition, so the hands are very different. And they really don't care if they don't have structure, they don't have this, or they don't have that. They change the hands quite a bit. The one gentleman, pretty senior, some lineage there, and is the most established martial art teacher, and the most successful, I think. He's a very good businessman. His Batamdo is so different than anything I've learned. Right? And so his Xisao is pretty close. So I can see Leung Sheung in that. And clearly, Eddie Chi's hands look very close to Leung Sheung. And the pole, long pole.
So you learned the Lok Tin Bun Guan and the Batamdo from Leung Sheung?
Yeah.
And this is slightly different with
Leung Tong, right?
Leung Tong.
It's more than slightly.
It's very different. Okay.
Yeah. Leung Tong, I think, has his own. He's a very sharp guy. He has an ability to look at Chinese sayings, the Wing Chun sayings, and talk about Guan Da Ba Fong, okay? The Chinese saying, the pole has to be ready to hit in all directions. And it has at least to go 4 directions in a form. So pole form, his knife form, all went in different directions. Right? And he was good at explaining them too. I was impressed that he talked about it in a very coherent way. We certainly didn't learn that.
Was he part of a different class when you went there?
He was in the morning class. He started in 1961. 60 or 61 in the morning, 7:30 class. He was working in the airport. So, and he had a lot of fighting experience. At the airport, they had to make sure American soldiers coming from Vietnam and so forth, who got drunk, all right, keep them in control and so forth. So, very different experience. And just about every one of them, one worked at a hotel as a kid, others worked in the evening, they were working young persons. And They just engage each other very differently. The language we use was very different. My Cantonese, how I speak, is very different than they can. There are certain words I never use. I never expressed myself the way Ken did. But Ken was pretty comfortable with it because that he was using the language that he was familiar with. Yeah, I want to capture that because people coming from different backgrounds, they were different enough that we have a different take on so many levels. We look at the Wing Chun sayings, and I look at them and I ask my mom, who was a classic scholar, Chinese classic scholar, I said, what does that mean? I don't understand it. And he says, it's the context. Chinese words, sayings, all depend on context, what it means. Right? So these are a bunch of words somebody threw together from different contexts. It's incoherent. I didn't tell where it's from. And there were specific statements that she thought was very well written, but she didn't quite understand. I think Ken was able to express that better in Loi Lao Hui Song. That's the Song, right? Loi Lao Hui Song is a very important statement. There are many statements like that, but it's one that suggests certain kind of etiquette and a certain kind of politeness that was missing in other parts of the Wing Chun sayings. Other parts of Wing Chun sayings, you beat the hell out of the person. so there you can see the words expressions coupled together somewhere along the line. But the only thing I remember Sifu Ben say is you should be able to trace each of these Wing Chun sayings through all the forms and how you train. And if you can't show me how these saying what it means, you haven't learned the Wing Chun principle.
Did he go through the sayings quite often?
He went through the sayings quite often. With me, he was much more general because I was, let's say, a young idiot. I mean, truthfully, and I want to be honest. I listened and goes out the other way, and I take things home and ask my mother, "What does that mean?" I have no idea. Right? The mother saying Chinese is so bad that let me explain this to you, and so on and so forth. Because I was very much stuck on Xunian Tao. I said, what the heck does that mean? What do you do with this? and then I said, it says something about Danti, about inner, about from the heart. I said, this is language of the internal system. Why is it in Wing Chun? I asked my Sifu says, never talk about internal system. Wing Chun has nothing internal in it. He made a major point. And I said, so, but it's in here in the words. So my mom would say, well, some can simply mean center in Chinese, depending on what you're describing, right? And so there's certain things, Chinese words within context of different interpretations. And you get to look what it is. And you just look at your Xunian Tao. I did Xunian Tao for her. She says, first I'll fall asleep. There's one part that is Biu Zi, the second part of this Xunian Tao. That's really Biu Zi. He says, well, okay. He says, look at the hands. I can see different hands. I asked the teacher if I'm right. I didn't know. For example, I never noticed that sound. You know that sound? That sound in Xunian Tao.
Yeah.
He said that is prominent. It's that on the elbow. That sound. Okay?
Right?
When you do fo, it's elbow. That's your shoulder. So this is that. And feel. He said, and then you go straight down. He said, now look at that. He says, you tell me that is not like internal system, where it's connected to the center and to the ground. And in the second form, you're always on the back leg. We spend hours doing the forms on one leg. He said, why do you think you do that for? So that you can gain balance. and develop certain muscles. So every time you hit and you move, you express yourself, you're pushing it from the back leg. Every time you receive it into the back leg. Huh? My mom, who doesn't know Wing Chun, she was just watching and looking at Chinese words and musing. And to ask her teacher if that's true. I asked Leung Sheung says, huh? Who told you that? And I said, oh. I said, my mom did. He said, huh? I told you that and you didn't listen. I said, oh, wow. It's kind of funny. But it was one of those things that my relationship with him was much more Sifu, the father, instead of just teacher, because the age difference. And I spent so much time with him. He taught me a lot. And he said, don't teach Wing Chun as a livelihood. If you can, teach it as a hobby. He said, Jack, you're going over to study overseas. Study, do whatever you do, then teach Wing Chun. Right? I don't want to hear you suddenly starting something like Bruce Lee, a school or something. First, you're not good enough to do that. He was very clear, and he was one of those guys I really missed. I didn't even know he died. I was in the States, struggling very much, finishing my doctorate and so forth. It's about 20 years after I left Hong Kong. And I would not have, it was very accidental that I met Ken. It was totally an accident. I didn't know he existed, he didn't know I existed.
How'd that happen?
I heard about him. There was this guy, some student. And I said, well, how do I find a person? He says, well, you talk to so-and-so, and they take you there. It's in the Cow Palace. The school was
okay. So you're in the Bay Area.
I wasn't. I was in Boston.
Oh, you're in Boston. Okay.
And I flew out here for a conference. I came out and I said, why not? I'm here. So I called this telephone. I called and somebody answered the phone. They said, oh, so-and-so, he owns a van. You may know who he is. He does dry cleaning and laundry. He said, he's a student of mine, and he'll take you to Mogul. I came to the place, and it was dumpy.
Yeah.
The guy was pulling my leg, the one who drove the truck. He said, oh, there's two tigers in front of the school that is ornate and all that. He was pulling my leg. Then he just laughed. Well, nobody would introduce me to Ken. I walked in and there were a lot of people. So I found the oldest looking guy with a beard. And I said, you Ken Chung? Of course, he wasn't. And then Ken, big guy came out and says, oh, I'm Ken Chung. He says, who are you? And I said, I don't know, some student, old-time student. He says, okay, let's see. Who catch hands first? And what he liked a lot, if you know Ken, drop him, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the best move that Leung Sheung uses was Hun Sao Po Pai. I did the Po Pai right into him. Stepped in right into Ken. Ken stepped back and kicked. He seldom kicks, right?
He rarely kicks.
Yeah. This way to protect himself, he kicks. Of course, I wasn't going to hit him, but I penetrated his center line. He didn't expect that.
He didn't expect that, yeah.
And he says, oh, you are Leung Sheung's student. I said, yes, I am. The crappy student, because I've been doing something else with my life. I said, oh, you need to practice.
It's like it's like that part in Rush Hour 2, I think, when I think Jackie Chan and what's his name, the Chris Tucker's cousin in that in that like illegal gambling center. Hey, you learn from that Sifu? Oh, I learned from his cousin downtown from LA. Like,
yeah, and Ken had a nice Latino student. He was really, really good. He's also very big, and yeah, I don't know whether he taught on a nice man. He was very good. I met a lot of Ken students through there. Then Kathy Joe and others. I don't know how I got involved with them. Say, how about you pulling a conference together? and bring Ken out to Boston. So New Hampshire and all these places, Wing Chun folks can be there. So that is the time Ken came out to Boston, and they met quite. I think there must have been over 30 to 40 trained Wing Chun teachers and practitioners in that workshop, and we had a great time. And I actually got three students out of that. They were all 101 airborne. One had 4 tours, one had 3, one had 2 tours in Vietnam.
Oh, the 101, 101st Airborne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one is the guy you saw on TV. He's still alive. He took a coconut and smashed it with his arm. Put it in the hand. He said, "You're going to kill in wartime. You don't play around." It was neat teaching them because they get to be on your toe all the time. They hit very hard. And so I learned a lot from teaching that. They were in that group. They also went to Leung Sheung's workshop around that time at Brandeis University. A whole group of people. And some guys came down from New Hampshire, from other places. I remember Ken was doing his birdie hand.
The one where he kind of like slaps
Birdie
you on.
hand, yeah. He did that to one guy. One guy sort of collapsed. He said, "I have a heart problem. I may sue you."
Ooh.
And I said to him, "What is this? You shouldn't be here in the workshop if you have a heart problem." So he ended up not suing, but he did have a heart problem. And that's how I got to know Ken better. I had breakfast and so forth. And later on, of course, I came out with Ben to do the workshop at the Y out in the retreat area. I didn't know them before. I should say, now I know why I remember Ken, because I went down to Southern California to Monterey Park, and I met Sifu Wong.
Oh, okay.
Very nice guy. Yeah, we visited him.
Very nice guy. And Sifu Wong told me about Ken. That's how I got to know. That was before I went back to Boston. I was being a student at Pittsburgh, one of the Claremont colleges at that time. It was fun going down there to see Sifu Wong and touch hands with the students, and the park where there are people from different martial art lineages doing different things. And you have Mun student, you have Chu, you have all kinds of other Wing Chun guys doing different things. So that's only at that time that I got to hear about Ken, and then got introduced to him.
Did you see the Chong at Sifu Wong's place? Because we were told that was Leung Sheung's original Chong, the black one.
Old Zong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all the original ones that you guys use with the tiny arms?
No, the arms are close together.
I think the arms were very close together. But the one I have at home is pretty close together too, and it's fairly short. I didn't really know whether the songs come in different sizes in Hong Kong. I just thought they were all pretty small because Hong Kong folks are kind of small.
Yeah.
and then if you look at the Zong South, if you do your hand properly, structure properly, it's narrow.
Right.
You step in. You have to really be your hand has to be very relaxed. Your shoulder has to be relaxed, right? To go in, do this kind of stuff. Yeah. Very small, right? So I just thought that's how they are. They're very small until I came to the States and they grew bigger and bigger and bigger. Apparently, Yiman had 3 or 4 different zong, and there are different sizes. Which are made by Wusang in different times. It's hard for me to look at the dummy and think about it as something more than a training tool, because when I did the end of Xuying Tao, did some drills, Sifu already started me on the Xuying Tao hands in the dummy. He used the dummy to show how to practice what is proper positioning. 长 Q, 标击, the footwork, the 熏格, Dan Hao grab the back leg up movement, the movement of body from one side to the other, facing the dummy, the handstand. That is all in dummy. And Sifu Sheung would teach the form to show me what the right position is when I'm doing these hands in the forms by putting me on the dummy.
And it gives you a frame of reference as to position.
Yeah, it's a tool. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Right? And he says, you're always you're always facing. You're never looking down your hand. Right? And he says, you're short guy, so me. So he said, you have to be even shorter because you're on your back leg.
Right.
Right? And the arms have to be about your shoulder level. So we practiced that, and it was small enough that it fit me perfectly. Yeah, so the dummy was a tool, just like the punching bag. I can't imagine Wing Chun without a punching bag, because how much emphasis was put on punching and how we would be tested. Not every week, but every few weeks, we'll be asked to drop our hands on the wall bag. Sifu would put his hand on the floor. The bag is against the wall. And he said, I want to feel the movement at the foot.
Wow.
And that's when I know your energy is going in through your spine down to the ground.
Where was his hand? On the floor?
Yeah.
Oh, behind your
feet. See, you have this wall,
right?
And the bag is against the wall.
Right.
So you're punching into the wall, but you notice you stop, right? You can't really stop. So you drop it like a hammer.
Right.
Bottom three, especially this knuckle. You relax and stop. Well, you do it hundreds and hundreds of times. After a while, the energy actually goes down through the bag into the back wall because you relaxed.
Right.
And it's like a hammer, you're just throwing the energy out. And it goes down the wall. I'm sure the wall was flimsy. That's yeah, and it's a concrete floor.
Wow. So what are some of the things that Leung Sheung emphasized? I know in San Jose, it's, Deng Tao Ting Yu, Mai Zhang Lao Ma Kim San.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same things? Were there more, or were there?
I wrote that in one of my earliest articles.
Oh, wow. Those 5 things.
After Ken's workshop in Boston, I wrote an article, and I talk about what I learned on the basic sayings and the sequence, and try to understand why you do that. Of course, if you look at it this way, Lok Ma, this idea of Lok Ma, Kim Sat, it's very important. Few people, they have Kim Sat but no Lok Ma. They have Lok Ma but no Kim Sat. Because it's a special movement when you do that. Lok Ma, Kim Sat. And Ting Yu. Of course, Sifu would say Ting Yu simply means he puts his hand on my hip bone. Dang Tao simply means you look high up, you look in front, right? Song Gin, you relax your shoulder. As at first, you may want to even try to sink your shoulder. If you can't, you don't understand what relaxing means. Because ultimately, the sinking of the shoulder helps you sink your zhang, the elbow. So when you do mai zhang, you're really sinking your whole upper body's weight. Sinking is with the elbow as the pivot, as the anchoring point. You do time zone. Yeah, so look at this when you do that. And then, so where is your elbow when you're doing ceiling? He says in Cantonese, it's close to your heart, which is really heart is this amorphous area in your front, right? It's a straight line. He says, but look at its relationship to your hip and to your knees. It's a triangle.
And Ken would mention that Leung Sheung would often, as Ken was in his Yiji Kimyo Ba, he would step on his calves.
No, you step on the back, on the back of the leg, and stand up on it.
Yeah.
Right? And we were deadly afraid of it. So he's so big.
He's a
we'd be
big
crying.
guy.
Yeah. And if you stand properly, he's not going to hurt you.
Right.
He's simply saying you need to stand properly so the force gets distributed properly. If you don't straighten your back, you're going to hurt your back. If you're not facing forward, if you're not relaxing, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, we used to do that. But also understand that so much of it that is Southern martial arts, Hakka martial arts, 当头、埋章、藏镜, Ting Yu. All these are in Nam Tong law, Nam Baho. All these are Hakka styles.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can see that, and when they come together, right?
Oh yeah. The
dragon.
tong. Yeah.
The dragon, the elbows in, close down, right? So you can see these are interlinked. Probably, I don't know. Nobody really knows for sure. Wing Chun morphed out of that.
Yeah.
Unique part is they all talk about being, they want the students relaxed. Of course, what that meant is a mystery. Nobody really understood. Relax. I don't know, we're relaxed. What do you mean? We're relaxed. The teacher would say you're not relaxed. So with that would be a long training. Yeah, those are sayings that are repeated again and again and again.
Thanks for tuning in to the first half of Dr. Jack Ling's interview. We'll be back with part 2 very soon. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to our channel to get alerts when we release new episodes. If you have any stories about Dr. Jack Ling, drop them down in the comments below. Take care and stay safe.